Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market, that is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up discussion today. We've got the markets going green again. We've got Sol up 5%, SUI up 22%, Pengu up almost 40%. We'll be discussing the general market movements, as well as touching in with the tariffs, the gold, the stocks, and all of those kind of things, which are super relevant at the moment and moving a lot. Tether across his 10% stake in Juventus, Premier Italian football club. Got a bit of a deep dive on Tether, which I just published, just trying to tie a few threads together. So we'll be bringing that to you. And then finally, Federal Reserve announces end of guidance for banks related to crypto asset and token and dollar token activities. We'll just touch on the significance there briefly as well. We've also got the latest on price action and general market thoughts as usual. I've got legendary Bread and investment partner at Silvermine Capital, David, with us on the show today. Cannot wait to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. This market is incredibly risky. So proceed with caution, exercise your own judgment, and do your own research. With that out of the way, legendary, it's Friday. It's almost the weekend. How you doing? How you feeling?
Jim, legendary is very, very happy today because I am tracking my portfolio on multiple apps, basically. One of them being portfolio tracking app like Zerion, and the other one being Rabbi as a wallet. And with the recent update that Rabbi had, now the numbers very much align between the wallet and between the portfolio tracker, because before that, some of my lending position on Sonic and other places were missing. And now I don't get irritated when I look at the two of those and see a completely different number. Now it's within a couple of grand. And that feels very good.
It's pretty crazy, isn't it, that we've been doing this space for so long and you can go into a wallet and it will tell you a number, but you'll have to secretly have made a note somewhere. Oh, by the way, that's not the real number. Like the real number is something else. And you can just lose loads and loads of money, or potentially because you just lose track of stuff because the wallet's not tracking it. Brad, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, legendary. I would need you to reach out to Rabbi because my numbers didn't go up, and I need you to make my numbers go up. I didn't find any lucky magic beans on a chain that I've.
Maybe that just means you're organized, Brad. Maybe it just means
I don't think that's
legendary. What that means is legendary lost track of funds.
No.
I wasn't surprised when he found them.
It means legendary is on the vanguard, is what that means. It means he's out there, he's adventuring, he's going beyond the support of some wallets and making money. It means I'm getting lazy, is what it means.
It's actually true. Yeah. You've got to be doing stuff where the wallets are unsupported to really be pushing the frontier, right?
Yeah. See, that's just, it's a reflection of my own laziness.
Dude, I had a bit of a shock yesterday in terms of losing track of funds. So basically, a broker service changed our bank accounts from German bank accounts to Austrian bank accounts, which changes the tax stuff, blah, blah, blah. So I re-downloaded the app because I was aware that I had an account with them, but I never remembered buying shares. And then I log in and I see, ooh, I bought Palantir and other companies like 4 or 5 years ago. And then I was like, for a moment, I was, hell, I'm like up 280% on that buy and whatever. And then I was like, fuck. Did I have to pay taxes for that over the last 5 years? And then I was like, no, I did not sell. So now the only thing that could screw me is if any of those companies in there were to pay dividends, but none of them was like distributing dividends. So it was like just a paper gain and I was fine. But I was like, really, how on earth can it happen that I have like a brokerage account and I've been holding stocks for 5 years that I completely forgot that I have them?
I actually had the same with Bill Ackman's SPAC. If you guys remember that from back in the day,
you got involved in that era.
Oh yeah. I was rolling my GT or GME gains into SPACs, and then I rolled my SPACs into crypto because crypto was like right on the corner. Like it was bam, bam, bam within the last like a year. But that went to zero. Bill Ackman dissolved it, and he I have like some coupons that are like kind of for a foreign stock that he turned that SPAC into because he never actually bought all the companies that he thought he was going to buy, and all the rumors were circulating around. And it's like, I have these coupons in one of my brokerage accounts. I don't know what they're worth. I don't know if I have to redeem them at some point, but I've had them for, I guess, literally 5 years at this point.
Interesting. So this is telling. Sounds like this is a common theme. We're just losing funds.
It's not unique to crypto.
left,
I
right,
just
center.
I just buy shit and then I just let it kind of melt. Is my trend.
Long-term investing, Brad. You've got such a long-term outlook. You just don't need to
Oxy
worry
was
about
in it.
it.
He was doing. Did you guys get involved in the SPAC stuff?
I didn't. No.
No. Oh man, it was all because it's because of Wallstreet Bets. That's how I got involved in GME, and I didn't do the what the movie theater was that went crazy. I just did GME.
AMC.
I got it. AMC. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just bought GME. Got in early, like $18, $19. Bought it, wrote it up, did awesome, and I was like, all right, I want to be smart here. Like I want to put this into something that is predictable, safe. And I was like, Bill Ackman was involved. Like I think Warren Buffett was involved, like talking about it, like, oh, they're gonna buy Stripe or some shit. There are all these rumors everyone was weaving in. It's like, I'm just gonna let it sit. And like it's cool. I don't care if it doesn't do a 20x. Like I just, I'll let it do whatever. And he rugged me so hard.
It's the equivalent in crypto of hoping that Wintermute is coming for your token and then realizing that yes, they might come, but it doesn't make it go up.
That was literally the rumors. It was what happened. You buy this because so Bill Ackman was the one that was leading this thing. There were a bunch of these other SPACs that are doing successful. And the whole thing was just that like they get this, they pool a bunch of funds, and then the rumors become, we're going to acquire a company. And then like through that, like they're going to revamp it, do whatever. You get ownership in this pre-IPO company. And the rumors were around like Stripe because it's like all these big fucking players and they were putting all kinds of money into it. And I was like, dude, these guys, they have to know something. They have to like be aware of something. There's no way that like, again, Warren Buffett, like Vanguard, like Bill Ackman, all these dudes, like they're pooling funds. Like they have, and so you're looking at tweets, you're doing all this shit. Yeah, they rugged me. They were trying to do like a meme coin CTO at the grandest level and failed.
Yeah.
Burnt my money, lit it on fire.
That is exactly what it is. It's the equivalent of how we always assume intelligence from the people with the most money, and happens across the board.
Yeah.
Before we get into the main stuff, just want to check in with you, David. That was a little bit of investor journey there. Interesting from my perspective. I didn't really invest. Every time I invested in anything beforehand, I would just lose money, like immediately lose money every time. David, what was your investing journey before you got into
So I guess because I got into crypto around 8-9 years ago. So before that, I didn't really have much money. So it was basically just
brother. That was like 2015. What are you doing on this show? You should be a gajillionaire.
2016, 2017. Yeah.
Nice.
That's the funniest thing, isn't it? With like people, the earlier people say they start in crypto, it's like that meme is like, oh, you should be retired. And they're like, oh.
2017. Yeah. I put a lot of money on fire.
Yeah. So yeah, before I still am outside of crypto, like very vanilla. I just stack ETFs, S&P, NASDAQ. All my focus just goes into crypto really. It's super hard, I think, to outperform the S&P and the NASDAQ over the long term, unless you are dedicating a lot of time to it, of which I don't have. So yeah, very vanilla outside crypto, which is a nice balance because crypto is so extreme. I had coffee with someone last weekend and they were like, oh man, like my boss rang me up. He was so pissed in this like market downturn. His net worth was down like 10%. I was like, 10%, like, oh my god, what I would do for that to that freak me out. Like crypto humbles you in so many ways. Shaking it to the real world is just so different.
But that kind of makes you immune to it, right? Like we're having global corrections, and we're like, it's that meme, right, where you're at the news, you're like, first time, brother, like
yeah,
exactly. Interesting. Okay. Good to check in there. Let's get to the main stuff. We've got some interesting headlines today as well. Start off with the price action as usual. Getting into Bitcoin, which is up almost 2%. It's kind of green across the board today. Almost a couple of percent for Bitcoin at 93.8. You got ETH up almost 2% to still 1.7, but almost 1.8K as well. XRP is up a couple of percent to $2.20. BNB is up a percent to $606. Solana up 5%, outperforming the rest of the majors at $153. Getting into the meme coin side of things, there are some other notable pieces of price action as well. I'll come to in a second. Pudgy Penguins up 38%. Pengu token, pretty huge move there. Trump's up 7%. AI16Z's up 40%. So there's some real big movers the last few days, right? Obviously things cooled off a little yesterday, but things have really, really started to jump back. You've got Pepe up 5%, Doge up 5%, Trump's up 6%, Bonkers up 14%. Fartcoin kind of relaxed now. Obviously, this was one of the early movers, up almost, probably more than 100% in the last month or so. WIF's up 20%, SPX is up 26%, Brett is up 10%, Popcat's up 22%. So a lot of big movers on the meme coin side of things. Melania is up 20% as well, just seeing that too. So yeah, a lot of green across the board. AIXBT up 25% as well. So that is that. Getting into the headlines themselves, as I said, the markets are green again in general. Legendary is going to touch in on just that general market move and the general status of the macro too. We've got Tether crossing 10% stake in Juventus, premier Italian football club. The reason why I put that there today is because I wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive into Tether, sharing some other thoughts I've been having on them, trying to tie a few threads of information together. And then finally, Federal Reserve announces the end of guidance for banks related to crypto asset and dollar token activities. Brett's going to just touch on the significance there a little bit later in the show as well. Getting into some notable price action. Remember, just a couple of days ago, we talked about which L1 we would back. I think we all said Bitcoin and hype. And it was like, oh, we don't know enough about SUI. None of us knew enough about SUI. SUI's continued its surge up to $3, $3.6, up another 22% in the last 24 hours. There were rumors of Pokemon being involved on SUI at somewhere. I don't know if the full pump can be attributed to that. And Inisha launched and surged up to 880 million FDV. That launched yesterday. Very nice. Well, a better launch than normal, right? It started relatively low and it's just gone up without any pullback so far. The Zora listing did come through on Coinbase in the end, but the price went down another 10%. So that's sitting at around $200 million FDV. Interestingly, on the other side of things, Cantor's CEP stock, this is the Bitcoin buying vehicle, that's up 50% in 24 hours to $24. It actually ripped as high as $37 on the day of the announcement of it becoming like this Bitcoin buying vehicle. So that's interesting to know. I don't know if anyone's playing around on that side. And then finally, as I said, Pengu ripped 40% on the day to 660 million FTV. These are really huge moves, actually, like really, really huge moves. We'll definitely want to reflect on that in a second. Ledge, is there anything we need to know on the NFT side, though?
Yeah, quickly before we go to the NFT side, that CEP move, or specifically missing that, is frustrating because you obviously touched it on the show. Stock is up 134% over the last 4 days. There would have been plenty of time to get into that, but I honestly was not even aware. Like I was aware that it's publicly traded, but I didn't have like this mental connection to be like, oh, this is an opportunity. And it kind of reflected on that it basically says more about like my mental state and my risk on, risk off perspective in terms of last November, like everything we touched on the show, everything that happened, I was like, what's the ticker? How can I make money? How is this related to an opportunity? What can I buy? What can I do with it? And now we're touching on news as big like that. And I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. This is so relevant. And I explained like all of my thinking why I think the Cantor stuff is relevant, but did not connect to, oh, maybe there's something to do and profit off that. And that, was a very good like reminder that it's maybe time to switch this part of my brain back on, which is the opportunity seeking part.
Yeah, for sure. We spoke yesterday at length about that, right? Like just getting warmed up again, obviously taking a bit of time after the mania. I think now is the time you were saying that you think it's time to like kind of just switch gears again. I think that makes sense. But yeah, we thought that was super significant. Maybe coming to you, David, quickly, before we get to the NFT stuff, what was the significance that you guys attributed to the Cantor news? We thought that was pretty big. You guys coming from more the fund perspective and considering the macro as well. What was your take there?
Yeah, I mean, we love seeing these types of headlines, and we're starting to see more and more of them, which is just super exciting, right? These vehicles are created to acquire cryptocurrencies in a public format. And not only when these things happen, do things like the Cantor stock go up, showing that the market likes that, but it's just another passive buyer of Bitcoin into the market that, if things going well, is continual. Like a lot of people say, like maybe Bitcoin's been propped up for the last 3 to 6 months because of Sailor. Well, there's more sailors now coming to the table, which is extremely exciting. and one by one, that's a compounding effect. So yeah, we love it. I'm sure you guys talked on the show since I was last on about like UpXy as well. That stock that
Solana.
got 100 million to invest in Solana from like some big names. And like that stock price has gone crazy. I think they did it at 294. It's now like 13 or something. So existing shareholders are now obviously looking at these things in other companies. If you have a listed company with some sort of cash flow, you're making revenues, but your stock price is going down, as a board, you're now going to be like, holy crap, maybe we should become one of these crypto buying vehicles, because look what happens to the stock price anytime someone announces this. There's clearly something here. We can operate our normal business as normal, but there's people willing to create these vehicles for us. And the more and more of those that happen, especially in the short to medium term, the more and more bullish it is for these currencies. So it's great to see people doing it with Solana. It's always great to see with Bitcoin. And I do not think this is slowing down at all.
David, I got a question for you. It's something we touched on yesterday, and we basically looked at the Bitcoin Treasury website where you can see like all publicly traded companies that hold BTC on their balance sheets, and about this metric that was also touched on with the Cantor news, which is basically the Bitcoin per share. So like you can look at a share of a company and see with every share that you buy, you'll also get 1,000th or 3,000th of a Bitcoin. And obviously now that's like a bit more of a, I would say, like quote unquote like playful metric. I don't think anyone seriously looks at this and says, oh, I'm interested to invest in a pharma company. Those two are similar, but I'm going to go with the one where I get like some extra BTC kicker with it. But could you see a world where this becomes like a more, not standard metric, but like just something that people will look at more seriously, or is this just way too exotic?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it could become a metric. I mean, that would be amazing. But in terms of, and it's very dependent on what the actual business is underlying, right? And what their overall strategy is. If you have a business that's generating loads of cash flow, their primary business is whatever, healthcare, and they just have a bit of Bitcoin on the balance sheet, it's much less relevant to you as someone looking to buy the stock. Maybe you'll get some short-term bullish news on that, but every year looking at the Bitcoin per share is maybe less relevant versus looking at a vehicle like 21 or Strategy now, where their sole mission is to accumulate Bitcoin, and the stock's almost trading at a premium or discount to that Bitcoin value because it's become so much bigger than their actual corporate value. So it'll be interesting to see those companies that are just putting a little bit on, the 1% of their balance sheet, 2% of their balance sheet, maybe that goes up in time. If that Bitcoin per share number becomes something that people really start to look at in financial statements. But I think, like you said, I think it's pretty exotic and a long way off from that.
Are you aware of any other strategy similar to this that has taken place in the past with traditional businesses, like solely
gold?
Okay,
but not as recent, right? People would diversify treasury assets or balance sheet into gold, but wasn't that common. I don't think it's, like, to your point, a movement like this that's happened that is like just global, capturing attention. The announcements have such an impact on stock price. That's I've never seen happen. And I'm not, like, I don't have a full history of the stock market and plays that were done in the past, but I'd be surprised if you saw anything like this.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The one thing I would maybe just remind people from, when we talk about there's a tendency to get like super excited about this and just think that there's going to be some type of domino effect, which maybe there will at some point in time. But the door has been knocked at, for example, Microsoft recently, right? Where that proposal went through. I don't think, as usual with crypto reporting, it was kind of reported as this big deal that it was like I think it turned out to be proposed by this particular interest group, which was going around proposing to various people. I don't think it was taken very seriously, and it was knocked back, right? Like, they obviously decided against going for a Bitcoin treasury strategy, even in a small amount. So as you say, it sounds like these vehicles that are making their sole purpose to do this, that's going to be the primary thing, at least immediately, and then maybe these things might follow later on. But there's certainly resistance there at the moment, right, David?
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because Saylor was in such a unique position given the control he has over the company to do that. So that's why I thought it was really interesting when you see the Upexy stuff where it's almost like people coming in and offering the vehicle to these companies that are just poodling along, not much growth, run e-commerce businesses. So now is it a case of, okay, maybe we're going to see more of that. The people who want to do these vehicles, they're going to go find these companies that are just pretty flatlining, their stock price has gone down, and convince them to do it and be able to create these already listed companies to create these vehicles. And maybe that's where we see this growth versus the bigger companies who are just deciding to buy it on the balance sheet.
Yeah. Okay. That's super interesting. Appreciate the additional thoughts there. Ledge, do you want to get into the NFT side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a real quick look because there's not too much to say, at least on the majors. Pudgies are slowly creeping up. They're up another 3% over the day, up 6.5% over the last 7 days. Yet again, above the 10 ETH floor, 10.17 ETH for the rest of the majors. Milady's were the second collection that's worthwhile mentioning, also having had a solid move, 11% up over the week, another 3.5% over the last 24 hours. Another thing I wanted to point out, and you have also posted about that, B, is from the Rare Pepe collection, a Nakamoto card, which is basically one of the original cards, one of the most coveted cards in this very OG collectible set, had sold for 70 ETH. The Rare Pepes are actually one of the collections I like looking at quite a lot because it is so historic, and always happy to see see a bit of a higher sale in this collection in particular.
Yeah, went for 70 ETH, that one, the one you were showing on the screen. Also Tyler Hobbs, a 1/1, sold for 140 ETH as well. That's pretty huge. So the art stuff's still super strong here. I keep coming back to the art stuff. I'm very comfortable in some of the art. I like that thesis a lot still. Getting into the rest of the Rugby Roundup, get up to with the rest of the news. There's actually loads and loads of news today. It was hard to fit in. I'll try and run through them. AT&T triples its hotspot locations via partnership with Helium Network, which allows US carriers subscribers to access Helium's large network of US hotspots. That is pretty interesting, pretty big news, like real world use case for a crypto-based company. MetaMask announced ETH no longer needed as a gas token when using its wallets. I haven't tested this yet, but again, that's pretty big news for Ethereum UX and the Ethereum token itself, now that you don't necessarily need it to transact on Ethereum. Stablecoin chain Plasma announced partnership with Yellow Card to make stablecoins more accessible across Africa. Plasma will be making a feature in like Tether section in just a little bit. Securitize launched a new crypto index fund called MI4 with $400 million investment from Mantle to provide exposure to major crypto assets and DeFi strategies. USDT appears to be coming to Hyperliquid after USDTO becomes a Hyperliquid validator. I think that's pretty sneaky, interesting news that I didn't necessarily see reported that much, because Hyperliquid doesn't have a proper stablecoin yet. Well, you can get USDC on in Hyper Core, but you can't have it on the EVM. Not at the moment. There's some kind of other alternatives at the moment. North Korea's Lazarus Group attacked crypto developers by registering shell companies in New York and posing as recruiters, according to Reuters. That's kind of concerning news. Getting hacked in this space in different ways is always something to be wary of. Rockaway announced the closing of a $125 million early stage crypto venture fund with the focus on the Solana ecosystem. Lots of good stuff coming for Solana, right? You've got those treasury companies that David just mentioned, two recently, again, like specifically focused on Solana. Now these are early stage funds with a specific focus on Solana. I always like to keep an eye on these kind of trends that you're noticing. The Solana ecosystem keeps getting that attention, I think. Peaky Blinders IP coming to Web3 via Anonymous Labs with a blockchain-based video game. That'll be fun. I almost made it through all of those seasons, but I didn't like it when I didn't like watching the decline of the Peaky Blinders empire. I liked it on the way up. I didn't like it on the way down. Kaito CEO.
It was a good show. Bite your tongue. That's a good show.
It was a great show, but I didn't like it when they started losing. I liked it when they were winning.
Yeah.
Kaito CEO shares Sidekick Labs' first live buy platform backed by Easy Labs, is dominating Chinese crypto Twitter mindshare. I thought that was kind of interesting to know. I had not heard of them before, so interesting to keep an eye on there. And then finally, something that anyone can probably do, Infinex announced you can connect your X account to your Infinex account whilst teasing future reward or utility. So you might want to do that if you want to participate. Disclosure, I'm an investor there, but I think that would be a good opportunity irrespective. So I haven't even done that yet, but I'm going to. That's the roundup. Loads of like packed roundup today. I felt like there's a lot of stuff to get through. Want to touch in with you guys to see what you're finding interesting, maybe coming to you first. Bread, anything catching your attention, or are you just going to criticize me on my interpretation or evaluation of popular British?
There's not many shows that I like. It's really good. I like it.
I liked it too. But
now I'm watching Among Us, which is really good. Anyways, yeah, like out of that list, the Kaido partnership one is something that kind of came out of nowhere for me. And I put out a post yesterday. Someone asked about like botted accounts and stuff, and I commented it was something that I use, twitterscore.io, that like helps me identify. That one helps me identify botted accounts, right? And I noticed some people that responded inside of that were. And what this thing does is it's kind of like Kaido Smart Followers. It assigns weights to people inside of crypto Twitter, and based on like the gravity, we'll say, of your following count. If you follow someone, you give them a higher score. So you can see people that have like maybe a lower follower count, but because they have high quality followers, their score is higher. So you can see this for like actual accounts, whatever. And I noticed some people in the Eastern region had low scores that were like known, credible, whatever, even though they had higher follower counts. And it made me think about like this region specific categorization of, or weighting of a lot of the tools in our ecosystem that maybe don't give enough credit to like the global audience that we have. So we have some blind spots, and this announcement with Kaido kind of feels like a blind spot to me, where it's like 650,000 followers. Like they got people streaming, and it's got like, if you go onto Kaido and flip to the language specific token, or not token, but mindshare weights, it goes from like 5% on the English speaking Kaido board to 25% of all mindshare on the Chinese mindshare. Like it's massive, right? It's growing like crazy. Kind of reminds me of GMGN, which is just like an app for like aping shitters basically, but it's hugely popular in the East. And I think that's how they, like, a lot of Chinese traders made money on Trump, because like it was trending on there. Everyone's going crazy, whatever. So like that thing kind of, I saw that, I clicked on it. I tried to watch like a stream last night, and I want to explore it a little bit more, because I feel like there are more blind spots that I have inside of our bubble, because we're in a bubble.
Yes, it's the bubble within the bubble. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. I've made that point quite routinely, actually, about the kind of Eastern communities. It's just hard to stay on top of everything, right? And there's clear cultural differences between different regions and stuff, and it's harder to access, harder to understand certain things. So yeah, I think that I specifically thought that was interesting too.
Although,
and I
like that's true.
Need to check this out.
I get because like some of the Mega ETH team are Chinese, like Chinese American. They're both, and so that means they often speak Chinese or talk on the timeline with the Eastern natives, and it's cool now that tech is fast enough that like I can see people that just like tweet at me in complete Mandarin, and I can just like click a button, read it, respond in English, and then we can have a conversation pretty easily back and forth. Now, like our algos aren't like overlapped entirely, or our social networks, whatever, but it's kind of cool how fluid it is nowadays.
Yeah, that is cool. That is very cool. I haven't actually had that interaction yet, but that'd be very fun. David, what about you? What's catching your attention? Before we get into the main stuff, we're going to talk about general macro in a moment. We're going to talk about Tether. We're going to talk about the Fed. Is there anything else from around the space, from an investing perspective, or any of these other bits of news that you're kind of curious about?
Yeah, I would just really emphasize the Lazarus stuff. There are some crazy things going on. I was targeted last week or the week before by so I was reached out by another VC, which like happens all the time. Just asked to set up a call. And then before you go on the call, they basically send you a Zoom link, and it's like Zoom US, and it's like .their fund, and then it's like dash web Zoom Web3 or something that I just wouldn't know wasn't official. And then you basically open the Zoom link, and then you basically end up on a fake Zoom that looks like the real Zoom, and it's a video recording of the actual person you're supposed to be on the call with, but the sound isn't working. And so the video is like him trying to fix the sound, and then me trying to fix the sound. And then if you on Zoom Business, there's like you go into the settings, and it's like to fix sound, enter this command in your terminal. And obviously, if you enter that command in your terminal, then it's like game over. So like it was pretty spooky. Like I've never let my guard down and like downloaded something like that. And now the issue is they have a video of me that they can use, and now so there's Telegram accounts impersonating me. So please, if I reach out to you on Telegram, make sure it's at David_Silvermine. I've put out a post on LinkedIn, but yeah, I've known a lot of people in the space who have been reached out or have got onto these Zooms, and they're using these recordings of the real people to kind of fool you, to lure you into a false sense of security. So yeah, it's getting pretty hectic.
God.
Yeah, there was this other Zoom vulnerability, which basically was only for Zoom like business accounts where you have individual users and admins. And there's a setting where you can let someone remote control your screen, and it has the same color coding as share your screen. So if someone requests for that, it just doesn't show like with the red button and a warning, hey, you're letting someone take control of your stuff. It's basically just the blue button, which kind of prompts you by the color coding you are used to click OK. And someone had posted a week or two ago that this is how they got drained. So definitely very, very important to be as careful as you can be.
Yeah, I guess there's two things there, and that's a good reminder, David. One, I mean, yeah, irrespective now, it's hard to, because they've got the kind of images of you. That's kind of annoying. But the one thing that I've always found, I think, pretty helpful is, at a minimum, separate computers. I know that might be like an expensive solution, but having the crypto on the specific computer that you are clicking links on, I think for a while now has been considered as like one of the more riskier things that you can do. So it's a relatively expensive solution, but depending on how much money you've got in crypto, probably be looked at in cheap in the long run to have a couple of computers instead. Okay, yeah, good reminder. Can be quite close to home, that. So keep alert. Legendary. I think we can probably just go straight into the headlines now. I've only got 20 minutes left. Definitely want to do the Tether segment 2 and then get to Brad for his part. General updates. I know we're looking quite green today. Anything else that's standing out to you on the macro that might be indicating why this is going on? What are your thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. There's two things I want to touch on. One, in terms of the US-China trade war, there's been a very, very interesting development. And then secondly, I want to talk a bit on the SUI price action. But starting with China, I found this a very interesting piece of news. And it is that China quietly rolls back some of the tariffs, according to CNN. And if you look at this story, so basically, we still have the situation, 145% tariffs imposed by the US, 125% imposed as retaliatory tariffs by China. But somebody found out that basically for some semiconductors, apparently tariffs have been waived on Thursday night. That is basically for 8 different kinds of semiconductors of integrated circuits that covers basically everything except for memory chips, with the tariffs being actually waived, so set to 0, not reduced. And the discovery was made during a routine custom clearance that someone was doing, and they found out after they filed the declarations that, hey, there's 0 tariffs. We expected there to be 125% on them. And also, obviously, people reached out to China's foreign ministry. A spokesperson there said they are not familiar with the situation. The Chinese Commerce Ministry also declined to comment more on that, but obviously that news did spread, and this is probably very, very beneficial also for companies like TI, so Texas Instruments, Global Foundries, Intel. But that was interesting to see that, basically continuing the story from yesterday, we still don't have this official line of comms between US and China, and US changed the tone to be a bit softer, and then China very, very secretly gets rid of some of the tariffs. And that's especially interesting on the back of this story rumor that was like circling on social media a couple of days ago, where Chinese people apparently have come up with a new type of semiconductor that is gonna make all the silicon-based ones that the rest of the world
Room
is.
temp, we're going to a million again.
Yeah, so it's very much mirroring the DeepSeek playbook, but I found that to be a quite interesting story on the one hand.
You know,
That is super. Go on, Brad.
this like I'm not in the traditional world. I don't do a lot of macro stuff. I don't pay attention to it. Whenever you're growing up and like listening to all this stuff happen, you always assume some level of like professionalism or competence, whatever, for whatever industry, right? You're not familiar with. And I'm always so amazed at how much shit maps one-to-one from the degeneracy we see here in crypto, because it's all humans in every single one of these things, right? Like I talked a couple of months ago about there was the subsidies that were given out to American farmers, but you can only have so much square land per person. So a guy hires a bunch of people to Sybil attack the government to have like 25,000 plots of land that roll up to just him that does the thing, right? It's the same thing that like where people are doing Sybil attacking chains here.
Sybil,
and now we have like this shit, which is like someone reads the smart contract and sees that there's this one loophole, and then he tweets about it, and then everyone gets all excited, and then the market starts shifting and people start buying or selling or doing whatever. It's just people everywhere, and everyone's trying to like min max, and it's just like it's the same level of shit everywhere. It's just you just change the clothes a little bit.
Yeah, and the one thing that I guess is really challenging to read here or stay on top of is that there doesn't seem to be a grand plan, in the sense that I mean, David, maybe you can speak to this. The thing that I'm confused about, and maybe I'm not an expert in this, the manufacturing of semiconductors, for example, but I'm almost certain that the whole point of the deal that, there was $100 billion investment deal with the chip giant, the Taiwanese one, not long ago, for them to decide to build 5 additional chip factories in the States. If you get rid of isn't that only required in a world with tariffs? And if you then take the tariffs away, what's the point of that deal? What am I misunderstanding here? And is there anything else that you're finding interesting on the macro side at the moment?
I think on that point, it's around investment in the US, whether it's jobs and productions versus just importing those things. I think that's kind of Trump's whole rhetoric, right? Like bring production back to the US, which is kind of a wide thing, and a lot of factory jobs and people don't actually want to do them. So I don't know if what the sort of jobs in chip factories are. Maybe people do want to do them, but I think it's more of like that signaling, investing in the US, getting people to build factories, et cetera, versus just the import play. And then, general macro-wise, I mean, 2 weeks now feels like a lifetime in these markets in terms of the decisions that get made and the movements, and who knows what the next 2 weeks will bring, and whether it's obviously going to be a bit more uncertainty, and we don't really know what's going to happen. But I do feel like it's starting to improve in terms of the relationships, just like Legendary mentioned. So I'm hopeful. I think like they kind of played their hand. They saw the kind of impact that these things were having, especially in the bond market. And I think that those yields spiking when the stock market went down really spooked the administration, and it's had to be reined in. So I hope we're through the worst of it, but never say never.
Yeah, that's fair. I think they really did not have much of the appetite, right? They lasted about 5, 6, 7 days with the strong arming tactics, the strong arm rhetoric, and that didn't really last. So it seems like a little bit of US capitulation there, even though they're going to have to try and find a way to save face, obviously, as they try and negotiate. Okay, so that's a quick touch in there. Les, you said you wanted to make a few other points on the general market moves. I mean, SUI's just gone completely crazy. What's the thinking there across L1s, or anything else you wanted to mention? Obviously, memes have gone nuts today as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be super quick and just focus on SUI, because that is really the main mover. SUI is up 73% on the week, is up 23%, as we said, over the last 24 hours. And you have mentioned the Pokemon rumors in connection with SUI. So I think it's worthwhile to take a quick look to understand where these are coming from and what has happened in the background. On April 23rd, so 2 days ago, the Pokemon company released an update for Pokemon Home, the mobile app, and the update did drop a new medal collection feature, but that was not obviously the important thing for crypto. What caught our attention was a change in the app's privacy policy, because in certain regions, the policy now added Parasol technology as one of the devs that the Pokemon company may share its user data with. And this is exactly the connection to SUI. Parasol is a blockchain gaming studio, which recently has been acquired by Mistin Labs, which is the core team behind the SUI blockchain. Also interesting enough, on that very same day, the foundation has published a blog post saying that Parasol would also launch a series of new games, but the post specifically did not make any mention of Pokemon. So this is basically via that gaming studio that's now a part of Pokemon Home's privacy policy, the connection that people have made to SUI, and which has started this rumor on the timeline that there might be more to that.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Any quick reflection, Brad, on predictions the other day? Obviously, maybe we're operating on a different time frame when we said we don't know enough about SUI. We're going to pick hype and Bitcoin. Any reflection there?
Yeah, so I saw Tyler break this yesterday, 2 days ago, whenever, and I was just like, oh, well, like if this is a full-fledged like development studio that they have deployed here, obviously this stuff would be in the works for a while. I don't know like what the timeframes are, but you would imagine months is probably like an accurate, maybe even longer, year plus. So I was like, I just saw that and I was like, oh, well, okay, well, like now the recent pump does make a little bit more sense if it is true, if it comes to be, and like all of a sudden this thing has been like just goosing up the last, I guess probably 2 months. It's just been on a steady move. That feels like a relative time frame. They came back and said that, SUI runs a tight ship and they wouldn't do insider trading, all this stuff, which is fine. I don't think those things could be mutually exclusive, right? Like the team could be doing that stuff. It can still get out and people can still make sizable purchases based on that information without the actual team explicitly doing some insider shit. So
it's a good question. One of the things I would say, and then we've got to get into Tether, I think, because we only got 10 minutes today. We've been reporting as well on Polkadot. We're partnered with Polkadot. But they've got some like awesome games on their platform. Hunter wrote a post just yesterday on that. Like they've got, so to the extent, like I'm trying to think through, is it possible that a whole chain can move on the rumor of one single IP? I appreciate this is Pokemon, which is maybe the single best IP in the world, and therefore maybe that genuinely could move markets significantly. But the NFL, for example, is a humongous global sporting brand, and Polkadot have, I think it's Mythical Games have the rights to that. They're producing this game, it's making tons of money. They've also got FIFA, the FIFA game, which is for you Americans. It's the soccer, which is super popular around the world, and that game's coming out later in the year. So like, it doesn't necessarily have this huge effect. Although I'd be happy to be told that no, Pokemon stands in a league of its own, even versus these sporting entities, in terms of interest.
I think that the thing to just interpret with this is that all it takes is one to like create a wave, right? Like there are going to be a lot of shots on goal with a lot of these chains. We sit here and talk about like the dominant position that a lot of these ecosystems have, but honestly, like if one catches fire, like remember Top Shot was on Flow, right? It was on Flow, and it started a lot of the NFT craze. Like eventually it migrated off Flow, but like they had the opportunity to capture all of that and turn it into something. Kind of fumbled it, whatever, but still virality is not really something that you can plan for. And it can drive a lot of action, especially when the size of our ecosystem is still so fucking small, right? So like one thing catches fire on one of these chains and then like it can quickly ascend to top 5, top 3, whatever smart contract platforms overnight. So it's just a reminder of what that is. So you want shots on goal. Just like with posts, right? We sit here, I post a lot, right? I shoot a bunch of shit. I couldn't tell you which ones are going to go viral. Some of them send for whatever reason. I had the one over the weekend where I just like, what's the biggest flaw of Mega ETH? Like that's it. I didn't put any thought into it. I just fucking ripped it because of something, and because totally memed it, and then like everyone started making fun of it. Thing ran like 300K impressions, right? Like you can't plan this shit, and it's the exact same thing with these products.
Yeah, you've got to keep shooting, I guess. Okay, let's keep it moving. I want to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, the headline today is Tether crossed the 10% stake in Juventus Football Club, which is pretty cool, pretty interesting. I don't know if it's super relevant to crypto as such, but it's kind of this bigger point I want to make about Tether here, tying a few things together. So the headline itself is, yes, Tether announced actually 10 days ago on April the 15th that it acquired additional shares in Juventus Football Club. This is like premier Italian football club, bringing its total participation to over 10% of the issued share capital. They've also been going around buying other stuff. Just for general context, they've got this like agricultural food company in Argentina. So they're like diversifying across a bunch of other things too, just for context. But the other things that I think are interesting here is like this Tether versus Circle battle that's kind of always been there. I know Tether is significantly bigger. They've got more than 60% market share of the stablecoin market share. But they seem to be making a certain set of moves here versus Circle that are starting to look weaker to me. And I just want to share my thinking here for you guys and see what you think. So the first point in this post that I made earlier, Ledge, you had this on the screen in a second, might be helpful to have again, is that Plasma is their stablecoin chain. I've spoken about it a bunch on the show already. It is coming, and they're going to be sending USDT transfer fees to zero. So this is like one of their plans, right? USDT, Paolo's very much involved in this chain. They've invested in it. USDT is at the heart of it, and they're going to be sending USDT specific transfer fees to zero. That's obviously in an attempt to capture lots of the stablecoin volume worldwide. I don't doubt that they've already got a lot of it, and it might be on other chains, but they want it to be happening on their chain. So I think that's at least part one of this. The second part is this partnership that they did with Athena recently. So as we know, Tether is number one stablecoin at 140 bill market cap. Circle is number two at 60 bill, and number three is Athena at 4.75 bill. So a huge gap between all of these. But there's this partnership that's taking place between Athena and Tether, which has been being articulated the last few days. The founder had this to say. This is the founder of Athena. He said 70% of the perpetual swap market is denominated in USDT. So for every unit of short Athena adds to the market, a unit of tethered demand is created.
Man down. Do we lose him?
Yeah, I think we lost B. Oh, you're back. You're back.
Oh, good. So in other words, a $1 increase in USDE leads to a 70-cent increase in USDT when USDE is backed purely by perpetual positions in the collateral. So because around 70% of the perp swap market is denominated in USDT, that kind of means that Athena demand equals Tether demand. And this has meant that these two teams have started to work together, and interestingly, their slogan, if you look at the Plasma Athena announcement, was pay with Tether and save with Athena. I think that's like a very interesting mechanism. I know, Brad, you're interested in going to fees all the time. You always say like Tether is number one, Circle is number two. Athena is right up there. I think it might be number 6 or 7 in fees generated. So this is like a little alliance happening here between the number one and number 3 stablecoin. But even in terms of fees generated, Athena is really high as well. And meanwhile, on the Circle side, this is what I've been thinking, or trying to tie a couple of things together. You had a couple of weeks ago, it was reported in their accounts that they have to pay huge amounts to Coinbase for distribution, which made people realize that they're nowhere near as profitable as people thought. So that's number one. And then number two, they announced yesterday that they'd be supporting the PayPal stablecoin to pass through the yields on that during the summer. So remember, we reported yesterday, the PayPal USD is going to be yield bearing. At some point in the summer, they're going to run this initiative. It's like 3.7% yield or something. So that in effect makes PayPal yield bearing, whereas USDC is obviously not. So you would expect rational actors, whether you're on Coinbase or anyone else, you're going to want to participate in something that is yield bearing rather than something that isn't. So you would think that people are going to switch away from USDC if Circle do not respond in kind. So those are just a couple of things I was thinking, both on the USDT side, where they're like making active moves, and then just like a little bit of weakness I've noticed on the Circle side, which I think probably has implications actually for Coinbase as well, Coinbase stock. So those are a few things that I was thinking would be curious. Maybe David, for you to come in first and the rest of the boys after.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I think Circle versus Tether has obviously been a thing for a while, but to your point, in terms of looking at the actual businesses, and Circle obviously wanting to try an IPO in the near future, the amount of like revenue that goes to like Coinbase for distribution is high, and obviously in this regulated US world where they're based, and the Stablecoin Act not allowing yield bearing, that kind of really puts them in a difficult position versus these competitors that are coming out. Because if you're and their reluctance to obviously work in some of the more third world areas and stuff where Tether's seen really good growth, so they do pigeonhole themselves a bit. Like, I think there's going to be a place for it, and obviously as investors and what we focus on, there isn't really much to do in that space apart from where do you hold your stables versus investing in it. But I think it's gonna be interesting seeing where it IPOs and what they do in the lead up to that, and whether it gets just fully acquired by Coinbase will be interesting. So yeah, one to watch. It's super interesting, the stablecoin space, I think, and the innovation around it, I think, is great.
Okay. Interesting take. Ledge, any final point before we hit Brad for the final headline?
Yeah. The thing we also talked about, and which I like, is the other investments that Tether is doing. You obviously mentioned Juventus, you mentioned Adequagro, that agricultural company. And just to put that a bit in perspective, so that company, which is obviously also publicly traded, owns 210, what is it? Yeah, 210,000 hectares of farming land, which is roughly 10 times the size of Monaco. So it's pretty fascinating to see them going into so many different businesses and having this way more aggressive strategy that they are focused on in terms of how they are extending, versus Circle is clearly more focused on, as David said, the IPO, the regulatory compliance, specifically in the EU. And it's just very, very interesting to observe those different paths that these giants are taking.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. Definitely wanted to bring that to people's attention. Brad, closing out the show today, what do we need to know on this final bit of news? Bit of regulation.
Yeah, the Federal Reserve actually announced withdrawal of guidance for banks related to their crypto assets and dollar token activities. You guys may have been aware of the war on crypto that was given out. It was like the choke point 2.0 is what the actual name that dropped. But yeah, that's been out for a while. Federal Reserve formally rescinded it. Now there is some nuance here, because if you go down to the second reply on this, ICO Beast said that, or referenced Caitlin Long here, who said it's actually not true that 100% of it is rescinded. There is another bill that passed in January 23rd or 27th, 2023, with anti-crypto guidance, and that is actually still in place. But it is important to note that should the stablecoin bill come to forward, it will actually overtake this, and it will remove that from prominence, or it'll overturn it effectively. So that means that Fed regulated banks are disadvantaged versus OCC or FDIC regulated banks for like stablecoin stuff and other activities. Bullish for the industry. Like, if there's a strong possibility that the stablecoin stuff is going to go through, then like it's ultimately just a matter of time, which I think is true. I think we're all seeing some pretty structural demand and push for stablecoins to come forward. So once that's done, we'll be at par or parity with the rest of the industry. So good news for us structurally, but it's nothing to act upon now.
Good stuff. Just want to go to David then, maybe to close out. Any take on that, or anything else we should be keeping an eye on from the investment side? Anything you're noticing at Silvermine that might be interesting?
Yeah, I think that headline, obviously, like deregulation, is just another small step in the right direction from where we've come from, and all these things, like I mentioned at the start, in terms of the compounding effect that we're starting to see. It's now moving in the right direction versus the prior 4 years, even when we're in the bull market, of the negative implications of those headlines compounding. And they take time, and it really feels to me like it's like the whole beach ball analogy of like being pushed down underwater. And slowly but surely, the more of these headlines come out, the more acceptance, the more guidance, the more comfortable institutions are starting to get with the asset class, the more pressure is building. I think everything's just teeing up so nicely for the medium to long term. So I just think it's a really exciting space. I know it's like sometimes brutal in this industry and watching the chart and some altcoins underperforming and stuff, but if you really do try and zoom out and see what's actually happening, it's pretty incredible. And I think this is a really exciting moment in time to be in the industry. So don't lose faith and just don't get blown out. And I think we'll do all right.
There we go. Interesting stuff. That was a great show, guys. Great week of shows today. As usual, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time for 1 hour, live on X Video, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify as well. That was a fun week of shows. Great show. Thanks to my co-host, legendary David from Silvermine, and Bread as usual. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day. Take care, and we will see you on Monday. Bye-bye.